Good morning and welcome to my presentation. So I'm going to be telling you about a man named Curita who is from Guatemala, and he is a 28-year-old man, and he made the trek from Guatemala to Arizona, the desert in Arizona, and then took a caravan up to San Diego, California. So Curita, 28-year-old man, his character is such that his mother, he was raised very, very poor, and his mother did not go to school. She couldn't read or write, and his father only made it to third grade. So he wanted to come to the United States to send money back to his parents, and so they could have a dignified life, as he put it, because they were just so poor. So he decided to go on the long journey through Arizona, through the deserts of Arizona, up to California. So through the deserts of Arizona, the they started out with, I believe, 40 Guatemalans, and then when they went through Mexico, after they went through Mexico, they ended up being 140 people altogether who were making this long journey. When they stopped in the Arizona desert, he said it was very, very difficult because he had blisters on his feet, and it was difficult to walk, and he said every step was painful. But he did make it, and I found it interesting that they even crossed through military camps. And I just thought that was interesting that the military men and women did not stop them or send them back. So he said they did, and they knew that they were undocumented and they were coming through. So I don't know, that gave me a little bit of hope for them. So they did make it through, and they took a van up to San Diego, where all 140 people from Mexico and Guatemala stayed in a tiny house. And so they stayed in this tiny house together for several days until they waited to find out where they were going to be sent to in the United States. Well, he had Curita. He had an uncle, or he had a friend that lived in Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland, and which I found interesting because I know one of my very good friends who's from Somalia, she also ended up in Baltimore, Maryland. So it seems like sometimes like undocumented citizens or refugees end up in some of the same places, it seems. So anyway, he went to Baltimore, Maryland, and when the taxi driver arrived at his friend's house, his friend told him that he could no longer stay there. So he had to call around, and he did find an uncle in Virginia, and the taxi driver agreed to take Curita all the way down to Virginia for $350. So he was going to go stay with his uncle for a while. Well, when he stayed with his uncle, he did make it down there, and he arrived at 4 a.m. to Virginia to stay with his uncle. And his uncle made him a cup of coffee, and he said he felt happy, but he also felt sad because he left home, but he had arrived in the United States and he had a safe place to stay. So then, after he got settled in with his uncle, he had a couple of different jobs. He was a painter, he painted houses, and then his next job was cleaning out buildings. So he got this job cleaning out buildings. While he was cleaning out these buildings, he met somebody who would be his future boss, named La Americana. And I'll be showing you some more pictures in the corner of just different examples of these kinds of bosses and the homes that they live in, the undocumented citizens. So um, Curita went to stay with his uncle. That's where we were at. And he had a couple of different jobs. These jobs paid very, very little. We're talking maybe $200 for a month, and he's working 60 hours a week. So you can imagine how small, how little per hour that was. So he meets up with a new boss, and her name is La Americana, and she tells him his sister and brother-in-law are going to come up from Guatemala and live with him, and she promises him that she has good work for him in Gulfport, Arizona, and he's going to get free food, free place to live, and work. So he says, okay. So his sister and his brother-in-law come up. Well, this turned out to be an awful, awful situation and deal for him because she basically holds him and his family against their will. She has guns in the closet and she makes threats to them, and it's just really awful, this La Americana, the way she treats them, and he's afraid to leave. And again, it's like this kind of slave labor that he has to submit to because he's afraid that he's going to be sent back if he disobeys his boss or doesn't submit to this slave labor. So I thought to myself, I can understand why he would be afraid. He doesn't want to have to go back because he made that such a long, difficult journey to the United States. So anyway, La Americana just takes full advantage of him and his brother-in-law and his sister, and they're working really hard, and she takes away their food if they don't do what she tells them to do, and they're only allowed to go out if she says they can go out, and they're at least 100 miles away from the closest town. So she will not allow them to use her vehicle. So they really would have to walk so far to get to the closest town. And they're afraid because she has lots of firearms. So you can see what a very difficult situation this is for El Curita. And I mean, he's in his 20s. So, I mean, he's sort of at a vulnerable age as well. And his sister and brother-in-law go back to Guatemala to have her child. She's pregnant. They end up going back to Guatemala. So he's there by himself with La Americana. Well, after a period of time, his sister and brother-in-law come back and they meet somebody, and her name is Vicky. And she ends up just being this kind character. And Vicky and her husband, Elvis, basically come to La Americana and El Curita's trailer and try to rescue him. But when he is being rescued by this Vicky, uh, La Americana calls the sheriff's office, and the sheriff's office basically discriminates against El Curita and his family and says, you have no proof that she's been mistreating you or using you basically as a slave. And, he says, you have no case, you have no proof. Well, he says, she's been holding me against my will, and they basically say, well, you're free to go. So he does end up leaving, thank God, with Vicky and her husband, Elvis. They do end up going to a safe place at last, and El Curita and his family get jobs, and she takes them to a thrift store to get new clothing because he couldn't get, La Americana at the trailer would not allow him to get any of his belongings. So they do take them to get their get clothing, and they set them up with actually a decent job where they're getting paid fair wages. And so, but the trauma, he lived in that trailer basically under siege by this La Americana for over a year. So the trauma is definitely going to take some time for him to heal from. But he is on his way, and he has this new job. And I think what I learned, what I learned from this whole story was just that, these different situations that the undocumented people from other countries may be in, and how they're easily taken advantage of because people can tell them, it's difficult for them to get a job when they're undocumented. So they're in these vulnerable positions, and they're easily taken advantage of, like La Americana did with El Curita. And I can see how what a difficult life it is for them. So, um, the Vicky who rescued them at the end and Elvis gave me some hope for these undocumented people. And, and it just reminds me, to have understanding and patience with my own students because truly I don't know what their family members have been through. I know I have a student whose family is from Syria, and I'm sure they had to make some long, hard journeys to come to this country. And this particular student does have some behavioral issues. And I mean, that kind of explains why. So I think it's good to hear these stories to get some understanding about where refugees and undocumented people are coming from. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation and the video and have a wonderful holiday break.